Hey rockers, in July of 1995, the Ramones released their 14th and final album. Yep, Adios, Amigos was the last album by the Ramones, and of course those guys decided to hit the road for one final tour, which was kind of heartbreaking for all the fans to know that this was going to come to an end. It's like, wow, the Ramones had been in everyone's lives since the beginning of their punk rock flirtation, right? So the Ramones were so influential and one of the best known rock and roll punk bands in history. And we got a chance to go see the Ramones on that final tour for the Adios Amigos / farewell tour. And it all happened in Chicago on April 19th, 1996. Yep, Chicago was about 2.5 hour drive north of Peoria, Illinois, where I resided. And Sister Tracy, Tracy McLeod and myself decided to go see the band. I had never seen the Ramones, and I was like, I've got to see them on the last tour because they were one of my favorite bands of all time. And I just had to do that and somehow meet the band, which we are going to make happen, of course. What happened was we got there and we decided, since we were so close to the opening act and the Ramones probably weren't in the venue yet, we decided to go ahead and hang out where the Ramones were going to come in when they got to the venue. Finally, we talked to somebody that worked there, and they did indeed verify that the Ramones were not in the building yet. So we thought, screw it. I got to admit it, we missed the opening act, which was D-Generation. Yep. Some of you guys are going to say, what? Why would you miss such a great band? Well, I guess because we're just such hardcore Ramones fans that I really wanted to meet the band, even if it was for a minute or two. So I thought I'd take my chances by waiting out in the alley, and there was no one else out there, but I'll get to that in due time. I guess I should say that 5 years after this actual date, again, April 19th, 1996, Joey Ramone, we lost him, man. He was gone. He was diagnosed in 1995 with lymphoma cancer. He suffered for a long time with it, but he finally succumbed April 15th, 2001. And that was a sad day. I was working on the radio when that happened, and I do believe I cried on the air when I found out the news. But don't tell anyone. Shh. No, man, rest in peace, Joey Ramone. We get to the venue, we park, we decide to hang out, we're flash forward, all of a sudden, we can hear the opening act, which was D-Generation, and then a white van pulls up, and guess who hops out? Yep, the Ramones. It was Johnny, hopped out first, Marky second, Joey and CJ. Well, we said hey to all the guys, and I had met Johnny previously, and that'll be another story. We said hello. Him and Marky kind of walked in. Johnny and Marky sauntered in, and then Joey had like a mask he was holding over his face, and he was like, "Hey guys," and we just said hello to Joey for exchanged brief pleasantries, and but he kept that thing on his face like he was either germophobic or because he was ill. But either way, I knew there was we were aware of his health issues, even though I don't think he had ever publicly disclosed it at this point. I don't think he ever disclosed that until 2001, but we had heard through the rumor, rock and roll underground, that he was kind of sick. We just didn't know for sure what it was. But then, those guys were pretty much headed in to get in the zone to play this, on their final tour. And Chicago's no small deal. It's a big city and great crowds in Chicago, man. CJ Ramone, however, stayed behind. And when the door shut, he stayed out in the alley for about 10 minutes talking with me and Tracy. He signed some stuff for me. It was super, super cool, answered questions, acted very enthusiastic about the show. He was bumming that the band was going to be, coming to an end soon. And they did come to an end about a little bit over a year later in August of 96, I believe. Or maybe it was not a year, right? It was just a few months when that tour ended. They did their last show in Los Angeles. That's what it was. Not a year later. In August of that year, they played LA, and that was their final gig, and they broke up. Well, the band goes in the building finally. We get to hang out with CJ for a bit. It was super cool to do so. I got to say respect to CJ Ramone if you're out there watching, because who knows who's a YouTube junkie, right? The band. We get inside the building, and we're just thinking, the band, we got to see the Ramones. They're going to go on stage. Let's get inside, because who knows when this band's ending. Well, D-Generation ended right around that time. So we knew it wouldn't be long. And so we got inside. We couldn't believe how packed the Riviera Theatre was. Yep, it was in Chicago at the famous Riviera Theatre, packed to the gills. Now, I asked Tracy her opinion. I said, do you think they oversold that place that night? She said, duh, you couldn't move. So, yeah, it had to have been a fire hazard. But, man, was there electricity in the air that night? understatement of the year. Dude, it was crazy. We walked in that place, there was skinheads, mohawks, people with Liberty spikes, long hairs, old people, young people. It was just really cool, man. And everyone was excited because I'd never been to a Ramone show. Didn't really know what to expect, but being the last tour, we were tripping on how many people were in this place. But I am happy to report we made our way through the crowd. It took a while, but we were just acted like we had somebody up there waiting for us and we had to get through. We got to about a little past halfway to the stage, from where the flooring begins. There's a bar, and then there's the stage area at the other end. In between is the area where you stand. We were about a little past halfway, and it was so packed that you could not move. And when the Ramones came out, the craziest thing happened. They came out and played, and the audience went so spastic that it was immediate slamming, moshing, crowd surfing, people just going insane. And I was getting like knuckles to the head and boots to the face, and people are being carried over the crowd and jumping everywhere. And I look over at Tracy and she's just getting kind of swept away from me. And I'm like, whoa, it was getting intense. It was real hot, and you felt like you were kind of at the mercy of whatever way the crowd went, you're going to go. And it was scary because if you've been in those kind of situations, you don't have any control. And you feel like, uh-oh, if I fall, I'm going to get suffocated. Well, Tracy ended up having a real issue about 2 or 3 songs in, maybe the 3rd song. She had a major anxiety attack because she was getting pulled off the floor. Her feet were about this far off the floor, guys. She was getting pushed this way, that way, going underneath the crowd for a bit, and she completely lost it, man. I mean, it was really bad. It was crazy, that crazy. She could not get out of it. It was a bunch of big dudes, and she was just stuck. So, well, what would any good girl do? She used her fingernails. Yep. She's known for having these hard fingernails that are really hard. They don't bend. They don't break. And at the time, she used to grow them very long and paint them and all that good stuff. Well, these things were like weapons. Like a cat would get stuck on the side of a cliff and use these nails, right? His claws, I should say, to dig in and not fall down. She decided the only way out was to dig in to men. Like literally flesh. The story she told and still tells to this day, it's like, yeah, I'm glad I wasn't in your way. She goes, dude, when I got to the other end and it took her a couple of songs to even get out of the place, it was nuts. She said she had blood and like flesh under her fingernails from clawing her way out because these people wouldn't let her out of this crazy pit. It was that bad, guys. But for me, I just held my own. And I got to say, it was the craziest concert I'd ever been to where I felt like I was going to constantly get put under the sea of people and be trampled like at the Who concert in Cincinnati back in the day, or Cleveland, wherever it was. I think it was Cincinnati. But yeah, man, it was intense. And I got the actual some notes I made. Joey was up there wearing his leather jacket. He had this cool black shirt on, and then he had his fingerless black gloves on both hands. He was up there doing his normal posture that he did his whole career with. He's holding the mic stand, and he had his long hair in his face. Of course, after a while, he took off the leather jacket, after a few songs or something. But Johnny and CJ, they're both wearing these sleeveless t-shirts. They're both completely energetic, back and forth, up and down. Johnny doing his classic hair fling back kind of thing. What do you call it? The hair flip. Yeah, the classic Johnny Ramone hair flip. He did that a lot, and he was standing in his usual posture, doing his power chords. Awesome, man. And CJ did a lot of singing that night because Joey wasn't in the best of health. He sang great for a guy in his condition, absolutely. But CJ did sing lead on a surprising number of songs and a lot of parts of songs too. But it kept the energy going, and it helped Joey out. During parts of the show, Joey would actually have to leave the stage and take oxygen, and he wasn't really trying to hide it too much. We could see him back there taking oxygen, which the guy needed to get through, but he did it, man, and he was a trooper, a total rocker. One of the best, Joey Ramone, man, for sure. Huge fan. But CJ did a lot of vocals, and of course, Marky, being Marky, solid drummer, man, just a legend. He kept the beat great, steady all night, as always. And the Ramones were just killer. They did not disappoint whatsoever. I was going to make some other notes here, you guys. Yeah, I think I told you about that already, all the crowd surfing and all that good. You know, the band plays everything really fast. They play everything like double speed. It's really intense because you think you're going to sing along to California Sun or, you know, Rockaway Beach or whatever it might be, and it's like double time. It's like, whoa, no wonder Joey needs that oxygen, man, right? I got the actual set list from the show, you guys. Yep, this is from the Adios Amigos Final Farewell Tour. Please consider subscribing to my channel. Give the video a like if you like it, and leave a comment, please. And thanks. So they did Durango 95 to open up this long set that they did. It was about an hour and 15 minutes or so. After Durango 95, Teenage Lobotomy, which is a Ramones classic, of course. Psychotherapy was up next. Wonderful tune that we all know. Blitzkrieg Bop, one of their biggest hit songs, quote unquote. Do You Remember Rock and Roll Radio was up next. I Believe in Miracles, and then Gimme Gimme Shock Treatment from that album right there. The Ramones Leave Home. They did Rock and Roll High School, which is a classic from the film of the same name. I Want to Be Sedated was next, another big Ramones hit. And then they did the theme from Spider-Man. Yeah, the Ramones fans have heard that, of course, but it was cool hearing that live. Very cool. And that's actually a hidden track on the release that came out in 95 of Adios Amigos on the initial releases in the States. It was a hidden, unlisted track on the album. The KKK Took My Baby Away was up next. Then, of course, I Don't Want to Grow Up from Adios Amigos. That was an awesome tune. Then they did, from the Acid Eaters album, the Creedence Clearwater Revival cover. It was Have You Ever Seen the Rain? That was rad. Sheena Is a Punk Rocker, another one of the Ramones hits and great sing-alongs, was up next. Then Rockaway Beach, classic. Pet Cemetery from the Stephen King film of the same name, which is a crowd favorite and a big Ramones fan favorite. They did that next. Then CJ Ramone definitely did lead vocals on Main Man and Cretin Family, both from, I think, Adios Amigos. You can call me out if I'm not right about that fact. But I know he was doing lead vocals on that. Then they did Bobby Freeman's Do You Want to Dance? And then, of course, the Richie Ramone classic, Somebody Put Something in My Drink. Richie Ramone, shout out if you're watching, man. Love you, brother. Also, California Sun was next. Warthog with CJ on vocals. Normally, Dee Dee Ramone would have been singing this classic. God, I love Warthog. It's when the Ramones did some like hardcore punk, and everyone was kind of flipping out in the punk community when that album came out with that song. But they did Cretin Hop next. And the next song surprised me. It was a Motorhead song, and Motorhead, once upon a time, wrote a song and recorded it called Ramones, Ramones. And they did that song. That was really cool, man, and they killed it. Today, Your Love, Tomorrow the World was up next. Then, of course, Pinhead, with the classic Ramones Pinhead character running out on stage, back and forth like a lunatic, carrying the classic GabbA GabbA Hey sign that they'd been using since, I think, the late 70s, maybe earlier. That was really cool to see the Pinhead. Then the band left the stage, but the lights stayed on, so we had the obligatory session of clapping and giving the Ramones what they deserved. And they came out, and they did an encore, guys. They did The Crusher, right into Carbona Not Glue, into We're a Happy Family, We're a Happy Family, We're a Happy Family, Me, Mom, and Daddy. Oh, it was rad. Then they left the stage again, but instead of the house lights coming up, the stage light stayed on, so we knew that meant give us some love and we'll do another encore, because it was the last tour, man. And they were just phenomenal. They really were. It was just palpable. I did not lose my footing for the entire show. When I actually left that show that night, Tracy asked me, how in the heck did you stay in that crowd? I go, you know, I just planted my feet firm on the ground. I sweated. I was bruised from head to toe. I ain't going to lie. But it was crazy holding my own, and that was the craziest show, one of the craziest crowds I have ever been in, man. And I've been in hundreds. So give it up for the Ramones. The second encore ended with We're a Happy Family. I'm sorry. Any Way You Want It by the Dave Clark 5 was what they came out and started encore 2 with. Then Chinese Rocks, the classic. Most people know the Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers version, of course, too. Gosh, I don't know what I like better. Probably Heartbreakers, but at the same time, I don't know, man. I guess they're even in my book. Big Heartbreakers fan. Long live Johnny Thunders, rest in peace. And of course, they closed the show out with Beat on the Brat, a great classic, one of the early Ramone songs from the days of Tommy Ramone, I think. Yeah. And that was great, man, because we were satisfied. Believe me, after an hour and 15 minutes of just being in that audience, I was ready to get the hell up on out of there. It was hot. I was soaking wet. And having long hair most of my life, it was just dripping, man, like a wet dog. Yep, so that's my story about the Ramones, you guys. Seeing them on the Farwell, Adios, Amigos tour. It was cool to have some interaction with the band, even for a little bit, even if it was just, you know, Joey and CJ. I got another story, man, about meeting Johnny Ramone in New York City in 1990, which is going to be tied in with a gig I did while I was out there in Staten Island, which was pretty crazy. But in the meantime, I'll talk to you guys soon. I'm heading up to Portland, Oregon on Monday, so I'm not sure what kind of content's going to make it in the coming week, but I'll hope to surprise you. Please subscribe if you have not. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. And long live the almighty Ramones. GabbA, GabbA, hey.